Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to stick to Sweden and we're going to return it to Brewski up in Helsingborg here in Skåne in the very south of Sweden. It's been a little while actually since I've reviewed anything from Brewski, so really looking forward to trying this one, particularly since it's a style that Brewski don't do all that often. And this is a collaboration beer that they've done with Cycle Brewing, who are from St. Petersburg in the Tampa Bay area over in Florida in America. My very first encounter with this brewery actually, so very curious to see what this beer has to offer. So for this one we are going to have a taste of the Eric. This one is an 11% Imperial Stout. It's apparently an Imperial Oatmeal Stout with with Colombian coffee added to it, so I think this one will be very interesting. But as I say, coming in at 11% ABV, you know, Brewski are better known for their IPAs and things like that, but from what I understand, Cycle Brewing do have a little bit more of are a little bit more recognised with Imperial Stouts and things like this in comparison to Brewski. So very curious to see what this one throws up, because I've heard that these guys have won a number of awards, and I know Brewski really quite well because I've reviewed a number of their beers over the last couple of years. So really looking forward to this one, and as always I hope you guys enjoy my take on this beer. So as usual with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about both the breweries involved here. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, it's the link to my other reviews that I've done from Brewski and my future reviews that hopefully I can do from Cycle Brewing. Like I said, my very first time encountering them, but I've done a number of reviews from Brewski before. There's all the usual social media. If you want to see more beer reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel of course has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the home page and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you, and another one for all the American beers that I've reviewed as well. This beer will of course appear in both of those lists, and as always please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Brewski first off then, since these guys I guess are the home brewery. So Brewski were founded back in 2014 in Helsingborg here in Skåne in the very south of Sweden. But the founders of the company are Marcus Hjalmarsson, Johan Britsen, Alfred Olsson and Robin Skoglund, all of whom were largely inspired by the West Coast American craft beers. But Marcus was originally associated with the High Nose brand of beer brewed at the Höganäs brewery, a little bit to the northwest of Helsingborg, and some of those beers are still brewed there, although all of the Brewski beers are now brewed at their own brewery in Helsingborg, which is now producing around 100,000 litres of beer per month. In 2016 they also started their own beer festival called Brewskiville, which had over 40 different brewers. I've been there the last 2 years and it's one of the beer festivals that I really do recommend that you have a look at. They've always got some really good American brewers there, and they've got various breweries from across Europe as well as some other different ones. I think the first year I was there they had a couple of Chinese brewers there who were doing some very interesting stuff. But they've also opened up the brewery once a month as a bar, and this is called Brewski, and they now have their own bar in Helsingborg which goes by the same name. They do some ramen there. The chef at Brewski of course is American, so it's not kind of authentic ramen, but I will say that it tastes very good. You know, if you've watched the channel before you will know that I do have a kind of close association with Japan, if you like, because of my missus. But yeah, you know, the ramen that these guys do, not authentic Japanese, but it is really quite nice actually. So if you get the chance to visit Brewski, I highly recommend that you do, and you can quite often find some of the rarer or less well known Brewski beers up there as well, some of the kind of core range favourites. But yeah, these guys definitely one of the Swedish craft breweries that you want to check out. Particularly well known of course for their sort of New England style IPAs, and also the kind of fruit IPAs that they do as well. Those are very nice. Definitely an IPA focused brewery, but it does always seem to be the case that when they do you know, a darker beer like an Imperial Stout. The last Imperial Stout I think I had from these guys was called Snout Juice. When they do attempt this style, they do it pretty well, so I would love to see them get a little bit more varied in the different styles of beer that they do. I'd love to see them have a go at a Scotch ale. I think that would be a really interesting kind of turn for these guys, but definitely one of the Swedish breweries that you need to check out if you're interested in your craft beer. So that's all you really need to know about Brewski just now. If you want to learn a little bit more, check out the brewery website in the description below, and you can follow them on Facebook Facebook and Instagram and stuff like that and keep up to date with all the latest goings on. But they are a fairly prolific brewery. They must put out around 20 or 30 different beers per year. So on to Cycle Brewing then, and as I say, this is my very first encounter with them. On to the second part of my brewery notes. So Cycle Brewing are based in St. Petersburg, which is in the Tampa Bay area over in Florida in America. And this company was founded back in 2012 by Doug Dozark, who'd previously worked for Oscar Blues and Cigar City Brewing as an intern. But this brewery was originally part of Peg's Cantina, which was an eatery owned by Doug's parents, and the brewery is named for Doug's love of cycling. Apparently he went on a big massive trip through Kenya for a good couple of weeks, and you know, he's done a lot of different cycling things all across the world, so he felt that it was only natural to name the brewery after his hobby. But there was a very, very small brewery originally that only produced around 200 barrels of beer, and they expanded it later to 400 barrels before Peg's actually shut completely, and it became basically a tap room and little house brewery actually. But originally they focused on IPAs and were doing very, very hop forward beers. I think they still do that to some extent, but they later became more well known for their big barrel aged Imperial stouts, and they've won a number of awards over the last couple of years. And in 2018 the brewery signed a deal with BrewHub, who are a company that contract brew for various little breweries. They say that they do it for breweries that are kind of restricted by capacity, finance or geography. I believe Cigar City actually did a number of brews with BrewHub as well, and it basically allows these very small craft breweries to get their beer out there a little bit more, which is really quite cool actually. But yeah, Cycle Brewing seemed to be one that have won a lot of awards, but you know, one of the lesser known breweries. So as I say, you know, there seems to be a lot of very, very good breweries over in America, and to try some of the different beers from these different places in the States is always interesting for us over here in Europe, because we can get a lot of beers from different countries. You know, it's fairly easy to, you know, fly around within Europe and try different things, but over to get some of these different things from America is a little bit more challenging. So yeah, another American brewery that I'd never encountered before, but as I say, they're supposed to be very, very good at Imperial stouts, and hopefully this means that Brewski will produce them a little bit more often. You tend to maybe get 1 or 2 different Imperial stouts from these guys every year, and the rest of the focus seems to be on either sour beers or IPAs. So as I say, I would love Brewski to produce a few more of these over the coming years. But yeah, that's all you need to know about both the breweries involved here. If you want to learn a little bit more about Cycle Brewing, their tap room does look very good, so if you're watching from over in America, do make sure you check out their tap room, and hopefully I can get out there at some point. It's been about 8 years actually since I was in America, so I'm overdue a visit there once again. My focus of course has been more on Asia recently, and I am looking to South America for the next kind of travel period, I think. But yeah, so it says on the side here, Eric, when our dear friend Eric from Cycle Street, St. Petersburg in America, stepped into our brewery for the first time, we knew that this relationship would turn into a magical and wonderful beer in a heartbeat. Together we poured the Florida sun, the breath of Swedish nature, and a shitload of Colombian coffee roasted coffee into this bottle. The result is a very creamy and smooth brew with hints of freedom, motorised scooters and bald eagles, all perfectly balanced for you to enjoy. 11% ABV, and very nicely presented. There you can see the typical style of Brewski artwork on this one. You can see the little blurb that I've just read to you. You can pause that if you want a closer look at it, and here you can see the Cycle Brewing symbol, the little CB, and you can also see the little Brewski guy here, and that of course is on the bottle cap of this one as well. I do love these little 330ml bottles that you get from Brewski. These are made of a slightly thinner glass, I believe, which makes them easier to recycle, which is really cool. You know, we've got to look after the environment and things like that, despite what certain world leaders would like to tell us. But yeah, so yeah, Imperial Oatmeal Stout, this one coming in at 11% ABV with some coffee added to it, so I expect a very, very smooth, more coffee leaning stout from this. So we'll see how we get on, but let's get it out and we'll get on with the tasting then. Nice little bit of smoke on the opening there, and we'll get it out into the glass. And I will say, this beer looks very, very oily on this one, and you can smell the coffee on this as soon as you open it up. But yeah, I will be honest, very excited for this one. You know, the last Imperial Stout that I had from Brewski was pretty damn good, and it really is a shame, in my opinion, that they don't do more of these beers, because Brewski tend to be very good at whatever it is that they put their mind to. But yeah, looking at this beer, you can see in fairness, out of all the 1500 or so beers that I've reviewed for you here, I don't think I've ever come across a head that is quite as orangey as that one. It's a really orangey kind of dark tan colour. That I don't think I've ever seen a head that is has been quite that colour before. But other than that, in terms of an Imperial Stout, there's nothing surprising about the appearance. You know, dark ebony rosewood sort of colour, pretty much pitch black. If I hold it up to the light, it's not even got a kind of Coca-Cola or dark chestnutty edges you can sometimes expect from these beers. One or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass there, and a few little ones heading up towards the bottom of the head. But you know, overall, other than the kind of orangey tinge that the head's got, nothing overly surprising about this one in terms of its appearance. It looks like an absolutely lovely beer, and you can see just from me shuggling this one around in the glass how much of a beast this beer is going to be. Usually the higher the alcohol content of the beer, the sort of longer it takes to settle back down, and you can see that head just going down very, very nicely. But let's take a closer look at the aroma and just see how we get on with this one. Oh, that's really nice. So straight away, you know, the coffee jumps out at you on this one, and to me, and I will say straight away, I've said this in all the coffee stout reviews that I've done recently, this is a style that I've been really finding myself getting very into these days. I don't drink coffee, and to be honest, one of the main reasons I don't get into it now is that probably my body wouldn't handle it very well, just because I haven't drunk it in my 27 years that I've been around. So, you know, if I drink caffeine, I tend to be on the roof. But yeah, the coffee in this one, to me, it strikes me as being a little bit grassy and sort of floral compared to some other ones. With this one as well, there's a nice earthiness, I think. But overall, it's actually quite a sharp coffee aroma. I'm by no means an expert when it comes to coffee, but with this, the Imperial Stouts, if you add coffee beans to it, the coffee beans in terms of their aromas can be just as complex as some of these beers that you're going to come across. So putting coffee beans into the beer just gives it this really ridiculous complexity. And with this coffee in here, it's got a good little bit of a kind of florally sort of sharpness to it, which is really nice. Definitely a nice bit of grassy floral quality to it. It's quite aromatic, to be honest with you. So yeah, definitely one of the sweeter coffees that I've come across actually. But underneath that you do get a really nice smooth sort of brown bready quality coming out of the beer. That'll be because it's an oatmeal stout, right enough. There's a good bit of chocolate in here, you can definitely smell. It's a kind of higher cocoa chocolate, I think, but at the same time there is a little bit of a lighter sort of milky quality to this one. Definitely a little bit of a milky chocolate note in there too, but I would say more than anything else you can pick up that darker high cocoa percentage in this one. It's got a very, very nice balance between all these different things. There's a little bit of brown sugar in here. I would say that it's a kind of treacly sort of note, but at the same time there's maybe a bit of a lighter sweeter caramel and also a little bit of biscuit in there, and a nice bit of earthy hop as well, I would think. And there's also a little touch of a kind of red fruity note to this one. It's almost a little bit like a tart raspberry or something, to be honest with you. Definitely, the red fruit that you get out of this one definitely has a little bit of tartness to it, which is quite interesting. It really does remind me a little bit of an almost raspberry note. I could be picking that up completely wrong, because I don't remember ever saying that about an Imperial Stout. But yeah, there is a little bit of tartness to the red fruits that are coming out of this one, almost like a, as I say, a little bit of a tart raspberry, but there could be some kind of candied strawberry notes in there, and maybe a little bit of a raisiny kind of quality as well. But there's a whole host of aromas coming out of this beer, so as I always say, make sure that you take a little bit of time and enjoy the aroma of this one before you get stuck into it. But we're going to have a taste of this now, because I don't see any sense in waiting any longer. So yeah, this one is the Eric, an Imperial Stout at 11% ABV, an oatmeal stout primarily with a little bit of Colombian coffee added to it from Brewski here in Helsingborg, here in Skåne in the very south of Sweden, and Cycle Brewing from St. Petersburg over in the Tampa Bay area in Florida in America. Let's get stuck in. Slanja, skål, cheers. Oh yeah, that's a really damn good beer. You know, I'm just going to say to Brewski right away, and I guess, you know, Cycle Brewing with that, if you can produce Imperial Stouts like this, you need to do it more often. This is a beautiful, beautiful beer. You know, I've always said in Sweden, probably the two best stout producers, and I do apologise if I'm missing any out, but probably my favourite stout producer, it's probably more accurate to say in Sweden, is Brewski. You know, when it comes, they've had two beers, the Sidamo Dim2 and also the Key recently, you know, two brilliant, just absolutely brilliant coffee stouts. This one is up there with those, I think, you know, it really is that good. It's different, right enough. This one I think is slightly sweeter than those. The coffee is a little bit, unless it's the coffee bean right enough, I'm finding the coffee in this one is a little bit less pronounced, and it could be the fact that this is an oatmeal stout with coffee added to it rather than specifically being a coffee stout. But this is just a beautiful beer. This is, I'd quite happily say this is one of the best ones that I've reviewed from Brewski. You know, it really is one of the best beers that I've had from them. And you know, it's probably fair enough to say that when Cycle Brewing are the collaborator here, and this is a style that they're particularly famed for, you know, Brewski have had a very, very good learning opportunity, and this does make me very curious to try some of the other beers from Cycle Brewing, so I guess I need to get myself over to Florida at some point soon. But yeah, this is just a lovely beer, this one. So if you get the chance to try this, get a hold of this, and you probably can still get it through Systembolaget here in Sweden. Incidentally, I believe this was one of the ones that was released on the new year, actually. So if you get the chance to try this, you know, really have a go at this. This is one of the best beers I've had from Brewski, so well done to them on that. But yeah, take a good few sips of this before you start trying to break it down a little bit, because this is just a really lovely beer. So with this one then, you can feel a little bit of a roasty black malt to this, but that's kind of blanketed straight away by a sort of chocolatey sweetness in there. You've got the high cocoa chocolates, but the further into the taste that you go, I'm finding that it's becoming a little bit more milky. You can feel the whole coffee bean infusion into this one. And you know, the oatmeal I think comes out a little bit later. The malt base in this beer is very smooth, and I think that's helping put out some of those chocolatey, some of the sweeter kind of chocolatey elements to it, which is very nice. The further into the aftertaste you go, you start to get some of the more roasty elements of that coffee bean, but I'm finding the coffee bean is definitely, to me, there's a sort of grassiness to it, which is very nice. It's also got a good element of a kind of fruity character to it as well. It's almost like the coffee bean has just a little bit like a sort of plummy, juicy kind of plummy element to it, which is nice. I don't think I've ever had that from a coffee stout before, but it's strange because these fruity esters are coming out in the middle of the palate rather than towards there is a little bit of it towards the front as well, but usually in a beer you expect the fruity esters to come out at the front of your palate, just behind the front curve of the tongue, but there's a fruitiness right in the middle of your palate too, which is really unusual for me. Yeah, I would stick with that in this. There's definitely a sort of plummy, raisiny sort of element to the coffee bean in this one. It's got a lovely kind of grassy sort of floral thing as well, and you can feel, as I say, these roasty qualities just coming out of it a little bit later on. It's weird because right in the centre of your palate there's this really, it's not tart, but it's a really kind of almost sharp, juicy, kind of plummy, raisiny sort of thing. I don't think I've ever had a stout that's kind of had this sort of mouthfeel pattern to it before. But yeah, the oatmeal's very smooth underneath. You've got a lot of chocolate in there as well. I'm not picking up so much in the way of brown sugar, apart from a little bit towards the front of the tongue there. There is a little element of brown sugar to this one, but you know, the coffee bean variety in this is very interesting. So it'd be cool to see, I'd love to see Brewski actually have a go at one of these coffee stouts with this Kopi variety. I mean, I don't know too much about coffee beans right enough. As I say, this is just a style that I've really got into very recently, but I'd love to see if all of these kind of complexities are coming from the coffee bean. then you know, I'd love to see Dukes Brewery use that base recipe that they had for Sidamo Dimtu and Key and use this variety. I think that would be a really interesting step forward for these guys, but I don't know how likely it is that they continue with these coffee stouts, because of course Hunter and Sons in Bristol in England that they were doing them with did go out of business, unfortunately. So yeah, but this is a beautiful beer, and as I say, if Brewski can produce things like this, I do wish they'd do this style more often. They've obviously had a very good learning opportunity when they've been with Cycle Brewing. This is a quality beer, as I say, probably the best one that I've reviewed from Brewski so far. But yeah, that's just absolutely a stunning beer. On the hoppy side of things then, back corners of the palate you've got a nice little bit of earthiness. There is a little bit of a roasty element to that earthiness as well, but as you come further forward along the sides of your tongue, I think there's a little touch of a herbal quality in here. I wouldn't be surprised if there's maybe a little touch of English hop in this one, but I think it's mainly American hops. But as you come further forward along the front corners of your palate, it really smooths out. There's a little tiny touch of floral quality there behind the front corners of the palate, and that really suits some of these elements coming out from the coffee beans. Then right round the front curve of your palate, it's just a little bit lighter and grassy, and then behind the front curve of the tongue, that's where you get these nice juicy fruity esters coming out of the beer. And yeah, for me, the fruity esters in this one are, it's not raspberry like I was picking up in the aroma. I don't think it's raspberry. It's more like it is more along the lines of a kind of plummy, raisiny sort of thing, but there is almost a berryish element to that actually. It's like a sort of plum flavour, but it's just got a little bit more of a slightly berryish juiciness to it, which is interesting. Definitely some raisiny notes in this one, and it's a slightly sharper raisin at that, I would say. Maybe even a little bit of a kind of sultana flavour in there as well. There's almost an element of cakiness to this beer too, which is really interesting. I mean, they've just, you know, both the breweries involved here just deserve a hell of a lot of credit for this. As I say, this is one of the most interesting beers I've reviewed over the last little while, and the other beers that I've reviewed, you know, have been of very good quality as well, but this one really is a bit of a standout for me. But yeah, the further forward you go on the palate on this one, I think there's an element of nuttiness in the centre, just towards the front of your tongue and in the centre there, and it becomes a little bit more woody the further into the aftertaste you go, but these lovely coffee flavours are just absolutely lingering there. It's quite hard to focus on anything particular in this one because there's just so much going on. It's definitely one of the more complex beers that I've reviewed over the last little while as well, but it covers its alcohol really well. I mean, 11%. It is a bit of a monster, right enough, but you certainly could blind taste this, and you know, if you've drunk enough of these beers, you are going to know when one's heavier, but it does cover the alcohol very, very well. So yeah, as I say, if you get the chance to try this one, then I highly recommend that you do. They've just done a beautiful job of combining the oatmeal stout and the smoothness you expect from that, and the coffee stout and a bit of the roastiness in there. But this one, in terms of the coffee stout sub-style, it really leans a little bit more towards the sweet side of things. So this one's got a bit of everything that you could want from the Imperial stout. It's got the roastiness, it's got the coffee notes as well. You've also got a little bit of the smoothness from the oatmeal side of things, but you do have a good element of sweetness to this one as well. So yeah, you know, I don't even know what more I can say about this one other than try it for yourself and see what you think. But I would love to see Brewski try a few more of these Imperial stouts, and I'm very curious now about what Cycle Brewing are obviously producing over in Florida. Somewhere I definitely need to go for a trip, I think. Yeah, lovely beer this. In terms of the mouthfeel then, you know, definitely a full-bodied beer. Carbonation's very, very, very smooth on this one. It's quite a creamy mouthfeel that this one has, but at the same time there is an element of an oily quality to it. There's a good little bit of bitterness from the hops, but you know, it's more a kind of smoothness there. If I was having to guess IBUs, I would guess that this one's somewhere around the kind of 40-ish, maybe 50 mark at a push. The malt basis has a really beautiful balance between the roastiness, the smoothness and the sweetness. There's a hell of a lot going on in the malt base. The coffee is really coming out very, very smoothly as well, and again that's making the malt base lean towards this almost kind of creamy mouthfeel that this beer has, and you've got a nice little bit of a juicy fruity note to this one. The further into the aftertaste you go, I think the more roasty and slightly earthy elements of the coffee are coming out. There's a bit of earthiness from the hops and a little bit of an almost floral grassy thing from the hops as well, but you do have an almost little bit of tartness from the fruity qualities as well. There's, as I say, it's difficult to put your finger on any one point in this beer because there's so much going on, but it's just a beautiful, beautiful beer, and one that I highly, highly recommend you have a go at. This is one of the best beers I've reviewed in a little while, I would say, so have a go at it if you get the chance. You probably still can't order this one through Systembolaget, but yeah, the Eric and Imperial Oatmeal Coffee Stout from Brewski in Helsingborg in Skåne here in the south of Sweden, and Cycle Brewing from St. Petersburg in the Tampa Bay area in Florida over in America. Beautiful, beautiful beer. If you like coffee stouts, you'll enjoy this one. If you like oatmeal stouts, you'll enjoy this. If you like sweet stouts, you'll enjoy this. Pretty much you just need to try this one if you enjoy a nice Imperial Stout beer, because it's damn good. And as I say, I hope I can try more Cycle Brewing beers, and I really do hope that Brewski have a go at some of these, some more of these Imperial Stouts, and I'd love to see Dugas Brewery do a coffee Imperial Stout with this Kopi variety. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. This was the Eric and Imperial Coffee Oatmeal Stout from Brewski in Helsingborg in Skåne in the south of Sweden, and Cycle Brewing from St. Petersburg in the Tampa Bay area in Florida over in America. Thank you again for watching my beer reviews. I hope this one hasn't been too much of a ramble. It's just one of the best beers I've reviewed in a little while. But thank you again for watching. Please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Check out my social media, and make sure you check out beers from both of these breweries, and this one in particular has been very, very special. So until the next time, it's Landon just now, and I'll catch you guys later. Skål.